Slide. When people fear, we got to talk about fear, because fear is the most potent weapon of propaganda in the world. Gaddafi's dead now, okay? Do you know how much fear that put in Arab leaders now? Yeah. All of them going to get in line now. Do you know how much fear that put in black leaders? Not that you really had any anyway. See, we don't have any black leaders. We got black spokespersons. I want to be clear. We have people who speak about your condition and who speak to you about your condition. For there to be a leader, there must be a plan that has been clearly communicated to the followers that's being worked on. There's no black man or woman in America who has a plan that is objectified, which means it has detail that goes beyond pure rhetoric to move us from where we are to where we need to be. You don't have a black leader. When people are afraid, they willingly give up their rights. You're doing it in your neighborhood. How many black people you see running around Baltimore talking about something? I'm tired of these thugs out here selling drugs and killing each other. As far as I'm concerned, the police can come and sleep in my basement if they want to. You see that? They love to hear that, because when people feel like they are imprisoned in their own community, they willingly let the government do what they want. The government has always been able to induce compliance by making you afraid to come outside. So you become an accomplice to the extermination of black males. Psychological terrorism is the most potent weapon used to induce compliance amongst a non-compliant people. 911 was a perfect example. You know damn well that no Arabs bombed that building. That's right. That was done by the United States military, the Rockefellers and the Bilderbergs on purpose. They knew that they would bomb 911 2 years before it happened. 2 years before it happened, in order to do what? Invade Afghanistan. Why Afghanistan? Because Afghanistan is the #1 opium and poppy producing region on the face of the earth. More than 75% of the poppy seed in the world comes from the Afghanistan. So when the Taliban burned down the poppy field, they sent Colin Powell over there. This was an Associated Press. Colin Powell gave the government of Afghanistan $50 million to replant poppy seed. Why would the Secretary of State give an enemy government $50 million to replant drugs? Because without illegal drug money, the American economy would crash tomorrow. One of the reasons why the economy is in shambles now is because of the war against terrorism. Is really a war for drugs, and because the Arabs have cut the drug pipeline. The stock market is shaking. Let me break this down to you a little bit more simpler. You don't need to buy a car every day. You don't need a pocketbook every day. You don't need a television, a radio, a laptop, or an iPhone every day. So because the things you need, you don't need to buy them every day, Wall Street automatically starts what? Gyrating. Because what? The sales are not constant. So in order for the stock to be supplemented, they must supplement it with what? Something that can be sold relatively cheaply, that people will buy all day, every day. There's only one thing on earth, and you know what that is: drugs. Without drugs, there would be no American economy. You cannot fight the war on drugs unless you fight what? The CIA and President Obama himself. Libya, Somalia, the myth of a violent, sex-crazed black male, population control. They telling you that if we don't stop having babies, it won't be enough food to feed people on earth. That's the biggest propaganda lie being told. Do you know that there's enough food being grown on the planet to make every human alive obese? So you say, well, when I look at Africa, Brother Umar, why they starving? Because what they doing with the NGO, the genetically modified organism, white man seed, is they planting the white man seed in Africa, and it's eroding the soil. So you can't grow again on that piece of land that you put the GMO seed in. And because you can't grow on it again, black people are going hungry. They're using food as a weapon. They're using food as a weapon all across the world. Food in fear. Next slide. Hitler. Let's talk about Hitler. Hitler was a master propagator. I'm not going over Hitler because I'm a supporter of him. Not only did he kill 6 million Jews, but he killed what? More than 50,000 Africans who were living in Germany at the same time. And it bothers me when I hear European Jews talk about the Holocaust and they don't say a damn thing about them black people who were also burned, cooked, cut, and castrated. You don't never see Africa. But would you know that it was Africans in World War II, they was called the Great Liberators, who were responsible? Black soldiers. Who were the most responsible for freeing European Jews from the most atrocious of the internment camps. In fact, to this day, is a celebration to celebrate the black liberators of the Jews. But I'm giving you him because what? His propaganda master, Goebbels, okay, basically pioneered in the field of mind control. Look at what they had to say. Education is dangerous. Every educated person is a future enemy. You hear that? So the government's job is to do what through the school system? To condition. Not to teach our children how to think, but to teach them what to think. What are the 3 goals of public education? First one is to do what? Induce social compliance. The second one is what? To choose the next generation of leaders. And the third one for black children is what? Prepare the boys for prison and our little girls for poverty. Next slide. Adolf Hitler said, through clever and constant application of propaganda, people can be made to see paradise as hell, and also the other way around, to consider the most wretched sort of life as paradise. Hitler is telling you that through music, through movies, through groupthink, you can make the people believe that what is true ain't true, and that what ain't true is true. Like black folk, we have a core belief that we're doing a lot better now than we were doing in 1960. That's propaganda. Where is the proof of that? That's right. Where is the proof of that? When we got out of slavery, when the 13th Amendment was passed in December of 1865, we owned 1/2 of 1% of all the wealth in America. Here we are 144 years later, and you still only own with Oprah, with Bill, with the NBA, with the NFL. 144 years later, 144,000 athletes later, and you still only own 1/2 of 1% of all the wealth in this country. See, when we nationalists say we got to do for self, the first thing an integrationist says, well, look, we got to work within the system. Okay, integrationists, then I challenge you. Put forth a fight for what? The redistribution of wealth in America. Because until you redistribute wealth, you ain't talking equality. Our problem is all we care about is what? Social equality. Can I go to school with them? Can I live in the suburbs with them? Can I go to the movies with them? I don't give a damn about that. Where's the economic equality? Now, if you want to take all the wealth and give everybody equal measure and we start from there, then so be it. But you got to realize, black people, you are starting from 1865 to the present, which means that the European and most other immigrants have been given a what? 250-year head start on you. And you're supposed to catch up with that. Knowing that no bank is going to give you the loan necessary for you to be able to compete with a European bank. Look at how they set this up. They start you behind. And then when you say, okay, I can catch up to Walmart, let me get a $2 million loan. I'll come up with a black mark. But guess what? The bank ain't going to give you that. And as long as black people do not have what? The wealth necessary to compete with European businesses, we won't be able to do it unless we do what? Pull our money together. What's wrong with pulling our money together? Black people don't trust other black people. You will give your money to anybody else but another black folk. You give it to the Chinese store every night. Half y'all, when you leave here, you're going to get a small gizzard, fried rice, and a 20-cent orange soda, 2 Lucy's and a blunt. And if you 5 pennies short, you will not get your food. They will hold that food and say you owe 2 pennies. Next slide. And they cook it in the same grease that your grandma's chicken wings was cooked in. Hitler said, it also gives us a very special secret pleasure to see how unaware, listen to this man now, how he almost controlled the world, how unaware the people around us are of what is really happening to them. You see that? Propaganda works on your what? Ignorance. Your conscious ignorance of what's going on. Next slide. Listen to this, y'all. This is how the government works. Make the lie big, make it simple. Keep saying it, and eventually they'll believe it. I got to say this again. This is coming from Adolf Hitler. He said, make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they will believe it. Repetition is the weapon. That's why we have to build independent African residential schools for our children. We cannot, even with a black school, we're going to lose if we bring them to school for 8 hours and then send them home for the other, 12 hours of the day? How many left in 24? Where the parents are indoctrinating them. When the TV, look at what the military does when you go to military school. You see what they do? When you join the Marine Corps for 3 months, you can't call nobody. That's right. It is all U.S. Marine Corps the whole time because they're doing what? getting that mind right for how they want it to be. We got to get the mind right for how we want it to be. Until we get our children to build our own schools, how do you send your children to the enemy to be educated and expect them to come back and work for your best interests? Next slide. What luck for the rulers that men do not think. Hitler! This is the man who almost controlled the world. What luck for the rulers that Negroes do not think. What luck for Obama that Negroes do not think. What luck for white supremacy that Negroes do not think. And then when we start thinking, we want to intellectually masturbate over the problem. Are y'all with me? Are y'all with me? You're going to be like, look, we trying to come up with a solution, but you know, brother, you got to understand the theory, the concept, the postulate, the hypotheses. No, brother, you ain't going deep enough. And you know what I find? The ones who spend the most time intellectually masturbating are the last ones to get involved and roll up their sleeves. Are you with me?
That's right.
They just want to tell everybody else what to do, but they don't want to be in it. I'll give you the strategy, but I can't be there. That's what we like to do. And you know why we do that? Because we really don't want to do no work. Black folk you don't really want to do no work, black people. I got to be honest, I'm a psychologist, I'm going to tell you the truth. You don't want to change. We have been conditioned to accept our condition. The number one goal of slavery was to do what? Turn the victim into a willing accomplice of his own extermination. Post-traumatic slavery disorder is nothing more than turning you into a victim of your oppressor. That's what's going on now. That's why you never even get to fight white folk. You got to deal with black folk who the white folk put in front of you. Right. Every city in America has a what? A black aristocracy. I don't live in Baltimore, but I know you got one because they have them everywhere. In the aftermath of the civil rights movement, what did the government do? It found certain religious leaders, certain scholars, certain black professionals, certain black businessmen, certain black entertainers, and they did what? Put them in high positions, and they do what? Control you through them. Do you think it's a coincidence that the more black mayors we have had, the more black lieutenant governors we have had, the more black JDs, MDs, PhDs, PsyDs, the worse your condition have gotten? Have you noticed that? It's because the people who are being trained from amongst you are not trained to serve you, but to serve your enemy. Next slide. Adolf Hitler said, through clever and constant application of propaganda, people can be made. I did that already. That's my ADHD. Next slide. Listen to this. If ADHD was around when I went to school, I would have been drugged up. And for any parent in here who thinks their son needs medicine, I'm living proof that you don't. I was an ADHD kid. I never had the diagnosis, but I've always had an issue with inattention and hyperactivity. And I made it through school just fine, 6 degrees, PhD, I needed no drugs. So why are you giving them to your son? Why are you giving him medicine that kills his brain cells, can cause heart attack and stroke, that can cause epilepsy, diabetes, that can put him in a coma? And most dangerously, what? These drugs do what? Destroy the black boy's ability to produce healthy semen in his testicles. So when your son is old enough to have children, he won't be able to because he couldn't sit still long enough to be miseducated. Hitler said, the size of the lie is a definite factor in causing it to be believed. Let me say that again. He said, the bigger the lie is, the more likely you will believe it. For the vast masses of the nation are in the depths of their hearts, stay with me, more easily deceived than they are consciously and intentionally bad. The primitive simplicity of their minds renders them a more easy prey to a big lie than a small one. For they themselves often tell little lies, but would be ashamed to tell a big one. Are y'all listening to this? And he's talking about blue-eyed Germans. Are y'all listening? He's talking about blue-eyed Germans. So imagine how easy he thinks you can be persuaded. Next slide. The lie, but listen to this. This is Joseph Goebbels. If it wasn't for this man, Hitler would have never got anywhere. He was the mastermind. He was only about 5 feet tall, but he was the mastermind. And then they say he committed suicide at the end. The lie can be maintained only for such time as the state can shield the people from the political, economic, and military consequences of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state to use all of its power to repress dissent, for the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie. Did y'all see that? The truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus by extension, the truth becomes the greatest enemy of the state. Look at that. The truth is the enemy of the state. That's why Marcus Garvey said that the pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is greater than them both. But how many black people have a free tongue? How many of our black scholars have a free tongue working at white universities? How many of our black leaders got a free tongue being financed by Europeans? Look at that, y'all. Al Sharpton, not to disrespect him, but he has allowed himself to be prostituted by President Obama. And the minute President Obama is no longer in office, he's going to migrate his ass back to New York and try to become a leader again. And guess what? He'll be able to do it. Because your biggest problem is the fact that you do not hold your leaders accountable for nothing. Only amongst black people. Only amongst black people can you sell them out and come right back to them. All you got to do is say you was born again. Next slide.
That ain't nothing but the damn truth.
Queen Mother, am I wrong, Queen Mother?
Absolutely.
Your problem is you are forgiving to a fault with Europeans, but you don't forgive each other. You will fight and kill another black person. Let somebody take $1 from you. You will hate them for the rest of their life, but you will give the Korean $1 every day of your life and ask for nothing in return. It's self-hatred. It's self-hatred. The most brilliant propagandist technique will yield no success unless one fundamental principle is borne in mind constantly. It must confine itself to a few points and repeat them over and over. Look, they saying keep it simple. What did Nike say? Just do it. By saying just do it, do you know they quadrupled their sneaker sales? Keep it simple and repeat it over and over. Black people are the devil and white people are God. And just give it to them for 250 years. And before you know it, their daughters want to play with nothing but white dolls. Their sons want to marry nothing but white women. The women want to look like white women and they get mad at the black man for dating white women. Well, wait a minute now. If you trying to look like her, how you gonna get mad at me for wanting to be with the real thing? And I'm not justifying no black man in here for dating outside of your race. I'm a Garveyite, and there is no justification whatsoever under the sun for a black man to be married to anything other than the African. And I'm getting sick and tired of silly Negroes talking about, well, I'm just paying them back for what they did to my great-grandma, dog. They slept with us, I'm sleeping with them. You know what I mean? I'm getting them back, Dr. Umar. Do you feel me? Is you feeling me? I'm keeping it real. No, Negro, you keeping it real dumb. Whenever you are with the enemy who is in power, they are in power whether you land on your back or they land on theirs. And your white queen could destroy your life overnight if she so chose. Because by being with her, you're dancing on shaky ground in the first place. And then the first thing the black man said, well, hold on, brother Umar. I don't agree with that, dog. I think they changed. Because when I go out with my white queen, I don't see no white men giving me no dirty stares. I don't see no white women looking at her saying, what you doing with him? I said, Negro, because you failed to realize that the only white women you are allowed to date are the white women that no other white man wanted. And for my black women who want to start dating white men, because I see y'all all on TV talking about, so we got to explore our options. Your option is to stay with a white man will never ever, now don't get me wrong, black men, we got our issues and we got to do a better job with our queens. I'll be the first to tell you ladies, but I'm going to tell you this, ain't no man, no European, is going to give his life or love you the way that a brother can, even with all his faults. You got to recognize something. You got to recognize that historically, the European male has been taught and led to believe that you've never had intercourse unless you had it with a black woman. That's right. And the European female has heard the same taboo. I'm not saying they all partake, but any of you black men who ever went to college know what it was like. They wanted to sample the goods to see if the myth was true. That's right. And I'm telling you, I know black women who have got their hearts broke by dating white men who they thought loved them to only be kicked to the curb when he found his true queen who was a European. That's right. And what you also fail to realize, black women, And black men, most of the time, when they marry you, it's because they can get something out of that relationship for future purposes. 98% of all interracial relationships are black men with status, power, and money, and white women without it. If you're going to sit here and tell me that interracial love is purely coincidental and is an act of nature, then by God's mercy, please show me one broke-ass black man married to a rich white woman. You ain't never seen no broke brother with a rich white woman. And you never will, because there's nothing accidental about it. Read Frantz Fanon's work, Black Skin, White Mask. He was a black psychiatrist married to a white woman, and he told you, real simply, black men date white women because they wish they were white themselves. And the reason we want to have children with white women is because we're trying to do what? Exterminate our gene pool. I hate the way I look. So by getting with her, maybe my son will look a lot better than I do, because I would hate to have to look at myself for another lifetime. Self-hatred in its fullest. It is the absolute right of the state to supervise the formation of public opinion. Are y'all with that? Yeah. It is the state's job to control the way you think, because if I don't control the way you think, then I automatically create anarchy. You saw what happened in London with black folks. You saw how they rioted a couple weeks ago. Why did that happen over there and it never happens over here with all the black men who get killed unjustifiably? Because your ass is scared. And then you worship materialism, because in this capitalist society, you've been taught that you can buy your way into happiness. So you keep buying these expensive cars, these big houses, which does what? Put you into a further dependency state on the system. So you can never speak up and partake in a revolution, because your lifestyle requires you to be a sellout. Your lifestyle requires you to be are you with me? Your lifestyle requires you to be a sellout. You can't speak up. You got a swimming pool in the back. You don't want to give that up. So when it's time to speak up, you just fade to the back of the room. Think of the press as the great keyboard on which the government can play. Wow. Look at that, y'all. The press is the keyboard that we play to control people's minds. And that was from Joseph Goebbels. Hitler would have been nothing without him. Next slide. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will come to believe it. The lie can